here tonight to tell you a very strange story. A story so strange that no one will believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, look at Kong, the eighth wonder of the world.
Welcome back, folks, to the eighth wonder of the world. Today we look at a film that is not really a King Kong movie, but this was also created by Marion C. Cooper and directed by Ernest B. Schoedsack as well. Screenplay once again done by Ruth Rose, and of course we gotta have special effects by Willis O'Brien. And O'Brien's new assistant, up-and-coming stop-motion guy, Ray Harryhausen. As you read in the title, we are looking at 1949's Mighty Joe Young. Not too long after World War II ended, RKO decided they wanted to repeat the same success that they had with King Kong in 1933. This time with a gorilla that is smaller than Kong, but still larger than that of a normal gorilla. So our movie starts off in Africa, where we meet a young girl named Jill Young, whose father does some work here with the natives. She sees two of them wandering by who are carrying a baby gorilla in a basket, and decides she wants to keep it for a pet. So she ends up trading her dad's flashlight so she can have the baby gorilla. Jill's dad is hesitant at first, but remembers she really has no one her own age to play with there, so he decides to let her keep him, and she names him Joe, who basically becomes a member of the family. 12 years later in New York, we meet a businessman named Max O'Hara, played by Robert Armstrong, who played Carl Denham in the original King Kong. He's a Denham character on here. He ends up going to Africa with a young guy named Greg so they can look for something to have a new venture with. They end up stumbling across Joe, who they end up roping, and he doesn't like it, so he fights back. He gets free and is basically about to pound both Max O'Hara and Greg into the ground for basically disturbing him. I mean, hey, they brought this on. Fortunately for them, adult Jill, played by Terry Moore, comes and stops him. So they go back to the Young estate, and they talk Jill into going to New York with them to have Joe in some sort of show business. Jill is intrigued by the idea, as she's never been to the United States before. She only knows Africa as her home. Spectators in New York start paying to see Joe doing things like winning tug-of-war against the world's strongest men. But all's not well, as Joe's not really happy with his current situation. He's very miserable living in a cage and wants to go home, and Greg actually sympathizes and thinks Joe should go home too. Some drunk guys after a performance one night start harassing Joe. This proves to be the final straw for Joe, and he breaks out of his cage, and the drunken imbeciles flee in terror. Joe then proceeds to terrorize the theater, causing everyone to flee in panic. Then he starts tearing the theater apart piece by piece, causing the lions to get loose, and beats them up. Seriously, this is a pretty epic scene. There's a trial the next day, but the judge rules that Joe must be shot. So now they sneak Joe out to get him back to Africa and smuggle him inside of a truck, leading to an epic chase scene. They then come across a burning orphanage and decide to help get the children out of there. There's one little girl still trapped, and Joe climbs up to get her down. After Joe's act of heroism, they decide not to shoot him and let him go back to Africa. A few weeks later, Max O'Hara's back in his office and gets a little greeting from Jill, Greg, and Joe, who's doing well and has his own happy little ending. This was very satisfying to see. This movie did so well in 1949 that it even outgrossed King Kong, and monster movies were back.